All right, we're at 12:33. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I want to welcome everybody to our August Lunch, Learn, and Collaborate meeting. As a reminder, this is a meeting that we hold every month, the last Wednesday of each month. And for those that have some really cool projects, we welcome you to join our team to present one of these months. Um, uh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be, um, really cool. It could be just an example of a case study of, uh, you know, trial and error, and what you learned, what you discovered. Um, maybe some cool stuff. We welcome that as well. All right. Um, let's see if I can get my mouse to start. There you go. So the discussion of the day, I want to just review the migration. Still people that haven't migrated, and I just want to make sure they don't have any questions, as well as just a refresher on some of the questions that have been asked, so you don't have to ask, and also share a document that will help you um, get through your migration. Also, we're happy to be presenting the research request portal. If you recall, that's the portal that is replacing the old ticketing system, and we're going to present, basically how we built it out and how it's supposed to be working. But before, I always like to talk about the stats. As of today, we currently have approximately 200 production projects in the REDCap. We have 426 in development projects. 9 of those projects have Mosio enabled. Active users, we've got approximately 520 active users, and approximately 115 external users. Likewise, I always want to talk about the new ITS REDCap as it's gearing up. We have approximately 29 production projects and 91, big number, 91 developing projects in the ITS REDCap, either by migration or by just new development. 3 of those projects have Mosio enabled. We have approximately 27 FSU users in ITS REDCap, and approximately 4 external users. A few announcements. Again, we're launching the new HRC REDCap portal system, replacing the old ticketing system. Just want to remind everybody, this is the URL to get to it, and this is the QR code if you wish to scan it. I also want to mention that at the end of this meeting, we will be posting in chat all the links that I and Marcelina mentioned in our presentation, as well as Simeon will be sending out emails to let everybody know those same links and QR codes. There has been a report of a couple of people having issues with trying to connect to our new portal system, ticketing system. And so right now we're asking, if you do have an issue, if you'll send an email to our REDCap mailbox, we'd greatly appreciate it. We'll get back with you as soon as possible. A couple of housekeeping notes, as I always say, if you would stay muted and raise your hand during the Q&A if you wish to ask a question, or post your question in chat. So starting off with the migration review, all project migration without extension or requests for extensions need to be done by November 17th, 2025. This is the link to request the extension. This is the QR code to request that extension. If you want the QR code. Also, all approved migration extensions need to be done by August 31st, 2026. Continuing with the migration review, there's always that question of how long will it take. Migration always varies depending on the project complexity. Projects without surveys obviously would take as little as a day or less to migrate. Projects with surveys, IRBs, or Mosio could take several days. Continuing, what do you need to do after migration? Well, there's several things you'll need to do, one of which, if you had surveys in your project, the IRB will have to review know about the QR code changes and the survey links, because those will change when you move it over into REDCap, ITS REDCap. External modules will also need to be re-enabled by the REDCap admin team, so you'll need to put out a notice or a ticket asking us to re-enable your external modules. As far as users, getting users back into your REDCap projects, they'll have to be re-added. If those users have never been into the FSU, the ITS REDCap, they'll first have to log in before they can be added to a project. Naming convention format for FSU users in the ITS REDCap is your FSU ID at fsu.edu. For example, my FSU ID at fsu.edu, edu rather. External users, the user format is we're asking to be the first initial of the first name plus your last name plus dot external. For example, Mark, M for Mark, Peden dot external. And this is the QR code if you need to ask for users to be added to your project. Also, you will need to add the new API token to your project. And as a reminder, this is the link to put in a request to have a new API token added in your project over an ITS REDCap. Again, this is the QR code to get there. As a reminder, to put yes in the survey to denote that yes, this is due to the migration to ITS REDCap. By doing that, it will branch around a lot of questions that would be typically asked when you ask for a REDCap API. And also there's been questions about will Mosio be affected in my project that you move over? We've had several people a couple of people rather, that have moved projects over that had Mosio and they didn't have any issues. So most likely not, but we do ask to submit a support ticket at our new portal system if you have any issues or need some help. Again, this is the link, that's the QR code. And lastly, I just want to remind you, you cannot continue working in your Mosio REDCap project while that same project is being migrated to ITS REDCap. Once you've successfully tested and or are ready to move that project to production ITS REDCap, that same project in Med REDCap will be set offline. Not to remove, just offline, so that you won't get double entry by some of your participants. First opportunity to ask any questions by raising your hand or put something in chat. I'll pause for a minute or two.
We have a question from online. If we submitted an extension request, will we have to wait until November or whenever the deadline was to receive a response?
No. That was, if you recall, the date was we're going to get it back to you as soon as possible. We're not going to. I'm not sure which date you're referring to. I could probably jump back up here to this one here. This is, your project or your request has to be in by November 17th, and all approved extensions projects will need to be moved over by August 31st, 2026. Did that answer the question? I'll pause for a minute.
Yeah, you should hear back before the November 17th deadline.
Correct.
We're just working through migrating projects over, and then also the list of ones that have been requested for extension. So you will hear back from us. But if you need to know earlier rather than later, you can send us an email at redcap@fsu.edu.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
we have one raised hand, so I'm going to allow them to talk.
Okay. Hello? Hello? Can't hear you. Are you muted?
Hi, what's your question? I think I heard a hello and then nothing.
We can't hear you right now, but you should be unmuted now.
But if you like, you can also type your question in chat.
Yeah, you can also do that as well.
Yeah, we'll wait a moment or two.
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay, so does everyone need to request migration? If not after the expiration date, what will happen?
What will happen? Marceline, you
Oh,
want
sorry, that's a different person.
to? Okay,
Apologies.
that's okay.
Okay, I guess while we were figuring out the audio issues, I can answer that question. Once the after the expiration date, you'll no longer have access to those projects in the REDCap. Not everyone needs to request migration. It's those that are requesting migration that need assistance on migrating. But for the most part, you can do the self-migration. We have the steps on the FAQ space to walk you through that process. And then if you'd like, you can also set up a meeting with us to do the migration of your projects. We're trying to migrate as much as possible over in the fall semester. But if you need to maintain data collection, during the fall semester, then you can request for an extension into spring semester. After the requesting, it'll be a collaborative effort of the researcher or client that's migrating over the project that owns the projects, and then with the REDCap team.
Perfect. Thank you, Marcelina. Did that answer your question? All right. Anything else, Alex?
Um, Young Ho, we still can't hear you. Would you, if you have a question, would you mind typing it in either the chat or the Q&A?
All right. Well, we'll have a question and answer it toward the end if you want to follow up on that. So our presentation today is going to be about the research request portal, which is the old ticketing system. The presenters today is going to be my colleague Marcelina and myself. We're going to talk about basically how it was an idea, taking an original idea and expanding on it into what it is today. I do want to give credit to our colleagues that worked on it together. Phil Wartz was the architect for the Lucid chart, which I'll talk about for a moment or two. Basically, he got together with all the hub coordinators or the leads on each hub to put together a workflow, how they wanted their projects to the process to be managed through the ticketing. He also provided consulting time and was a tester. Marcelina and I both were designers and builders from that Lucid chart layout and also testers. Simi was our consultant that help us review things, make sure things flowed properly, and was also a tester. I'm more briefly going to talk about the old ticketing project, the Lucid chart that Phil has put together, and how we designed the new portal project, the project design and survey development, advanced logic related to external links and external emails. Talk a bit about the alerts and notifications for the request, and just a splash screen about how we disabled the old ticketing system and redirected it to the new system. So as a reminder for those that had the pleasure of utilizing the wonderful idea that came out a few years ago of the old ticketing project, there was only 3 hubs. But behind these plus signs, there was quite a bit of coding as well as um, triggers and alerts that were um, that was designed to build out the good layout and design of the project. However, it got so popular, we had quite a few other hubs that wanted to be a part of it. They found saw a need to use it as well, which brought us to the current version that we have. So Phil put together this lucid chart, and it's not designed for you guys to be able to see it. What I wanted to focus on is the 12 hubs that we have out there in the lucid chart project. And if you notice, each one of these lucid charts for each hub is completely different. So that meant that we had to work, Marcelina and I had to build out workflows for each hub differently. You couldn't copy one and then do another. Every one of them was unique. And excellent flow chart or lucid chart that was good guidance on helping us to quickly build the project only in a few months of time. If you've been into the new ticketing system, a portal system, these are the instruments that were created per the lucid chart. As you can see, the naming convention was related to each one of the hubs throughout. The request is the governor of the entire system. Whatever you entered and selected within that mandated the workflow to each one of the hubs. I'm going to focus in on one lucid chart hub because it just and just step through things just to give you a feel of how just one of them was done. Obviously, this is a little bit easier workflow because of the time as well as the screen space to do it. This particular hub is the human subjects protection hub. I think I got a leveling. Yeah. So this is important with the leveling because there's 3 different levels of this ticketing system. These levels are mentioned, will be mentioned in several slides in my presentation as well as maybe 1 or 2 in Marcelina's, but also it is also in the alerts as well as emails that are received both out to any hub mailboxes that tickets are sent out to, as well as a response back to the requester that requested the ticket. And so level 1 is basically the hub. Level 2 is the services offered. Obviously, there's more than one service offered. I just captured one little section of it so I could talk about it. Within each service, there's different levels of support. In this case, these top 3 were sending support out to different websites. The 4th one was going out to an email. So we had to create 2 alerts to manage these 2 different type of processes. And so stepping back a moment into the request form, these are the 12 hubs that are laid out. If you remember, this one here, this one here, this one here, the bird, the clinical research, and community engagement were the 3 hubs that were in the previous version of the ticketing system. And we build out the balance of these 12 that are in here now. I am going to focus on the human services, again, protection conversation moving forward. All right, so again, this is if you can think of it in the request form, this is the section for human subject protection. These are all black. Normally, you would, in that large screen where it had all 12 of them, it was white. But when I click on one, then it breaks it out into the different level 2s. There it is. Level 2s that would have all the different support areas that were available. And then the 3rd level again, is the different support opportunities within each one of those request sections. Noting and reminding everybody that these top three were asking for information, and it had three hyperlinks to websites, and the fourth one was sending out to a message out to a mailbox. So there's the first email that would go out via the alert would go back to the requester or the client. It'll highlight what hub they were asking support in as a reminder. It will have a hyperlink back to a form in REDCap that would list either the one, two, or three pages, URLs to websites that they can click on, and those websites would show up in subsequent tabs on the REDCap browser window. And down below, this is just the top part of it. It also has the table of what the request was about. And so he or she would click on that link that I just mentioned, and this is what the form itself would look like within REDCap. This is the information they entered about what they had, again, referring to the level one, level two. That's why I want to talk about level one, level two, because I want to make sure that you understood what that meant when you see that in your email, if you do put in a request. And so, as I mentioned, because I selected all three of the external links, it populated. If it only picked one, it would only show one. But all three of these are hot links. Clicking on each one of these would bring up the information in a new tab. And so again, that's the first email that goes out. The second email alert would send out to that mailbox. And so this is the body of what the email would look like to that mailbox, because I selected other, if you're following the flow of my conversation. And then if I would expand it out, it had the table of information that whoever's monitoring this mailbox would be able to know what he or she was asking for as other help. As far as the alerts, there was only two alerts in this particular portion of this hub. The first one is the external link alert, and that is the one that builds out the email back to the requester. So he or she will get the information according to these conditions. And of course, the utmost primary condition is that the survey request form was complete. The second alert is the alert that goes out to that mailbox, and whoever's monitoring it down below, it would have other information, like I said, in that table, level one, level two, level three, so that he or she would know, and as well as who was the requester, and an email, so he or she could go out and reach back out to them to provide additional support. And I did just a simple, quick disable of the old ticketing system. The URL would bring you to this landing spot, which would normally be that survey. And all I do is redirect it by putting in that click here. And by clicking that, you'll automatically go over to the new ITS portal ticketing system. Again, that is, that's so that people don't try to enter in data in the old ticketing system. All right, well, that's all I wanted to mention. Now I'm going to share a little bit about what Marcina's going to talk about, and then turn it over to her. She's going to talk a little bit about the project design and survey development as well, combining the old project with the new project portal system. A little bit about the requests, the coordinate, consult, close out instruments, as well as data entry. A little bit of advanced logic on the action tags of at default and at if statement, and alerts and notifications related to the request in the coordinate. All right, with that, please join me in welcoming Marcelina.
Thank you, Mark.
Sure.
Let me share my screen. Oops. Mhm. Okay, perfect. So, as Mark mentioned, I'm going to talk about my portion of the support that I've provided for the new request portal. Here's a little bit about kind of the same agenda that he had already. So talking about the project design and survey development, specifically regarding the pre-existing hubs in ticketing system 2.0 that got moved over, and we're redesigning the forms based on what feedback we got from the leads for these particular hubs, as well as specific action tags, advanced logic concepts, and alerts and notifications specifically for request and coordinate. Mark had mentioned some of the alerts and notifications that he had used not only to let external emails know that someone is asking for assistance on a particular service, but also the external links. And I'll just kind of dive into what else is happening with the request and the coordinate in terms of other coordinators and other hub leads, and then next steps for what we want to do moving forward with the request portal. So I think for the big part of the project design and survey development that I wanted to touch upon, that is kind of woven in as we go through, is that troubleshooting and responding to feedback is always going to be something that you'll have to do as you go through designing and doing the survey development, especially if there are multiple collaborators involved with that project design. And that's something that should be built into your timeline as you're designing, so that way you don't have to make as many changes once you move the project to production. So here on the left is what we initially had in ticketing system 2.0, and then in the request portal we now have the 12 hubs. And we have 3 hubs displayed here, but built into research and clinical research is also REDCap. So technically we had 4 starting off in ticketing system 2.0, and then with the request portal we now have the full 12. So my big focus in terms of building was focusing on the pre-existing hubs and redesigning what those forms would look like in terms of the coordination and consultation. For each of these hubs, community engagement, clinical research, REDCap, and biostats and informatics, they each had these 3 forms and then the service survey that I'll get into as we go through. So when we start off with the coordinate space, this is where coordinators are able to respond to the client or researcher that's requesting for support. The coordinate space starts with a request summary. So this, Mark had mentioned, is also attached to all the emails, alerts, and notifications that go out to not only the users, but also to any of our coordinators or hub leads, so that they know this is the request and the support that they need to provide for this particular record. I guess, yeah, let me jump back. So the way that this is organized, Mark also touched upon the level 1s and level 2s. So for level 1, this lists all the groups that are checked. So this may not be the particular group that we are working in. So for example, if someone selects REDCap and clinical research, both of those would show up in this hub request space. But in hub services and specific research requests, since I'm part of the REDCap team, it would only show up with the REDCap level 2 and level 3 specific embedded spaces. And I'll kind of show what that looks like in a little bit. But all of the rest of these are pulled directly from the initial request. The next space is for the coordinators and collaborators. So for community engagement, clinical research, REDCap, and biostats and informatics, we have specific coordinators dedicated to each of these hubs. And this kind of goes back to what Mark was saying about how each of these hub designs were not necessarily something that we could copy and paste because everyone had their own specific coordinators and how they wanted this information to structure, but this is like the general template. So something that we added, or something that we already had in ticketing system 2.0 is this coordinator selection and this collaborators section for each of the hubs. However, we realized that if the coordinator gets reassigned at any point in the ticketing system 2.0, there wasn't a great way to notify the coordinator unless you had external conversations about it. So to build that into the form itself, we had a toggle that talked about whether or not you would want to send a notification to a new coordinator or send a notification to a new collaborator that they had been added onto this particular request. So, and then when you first see this form, we do it based on instances, so that way all of the information can be retained across multiple instances, and you also know who had already been assigned to this request. So this field only shows up when the current instance is not the first instance, because this will already let them know, like, hey, you've been assigned to this ticket or request first, and then any subsequent instance after that, you would have to manually select, I would like to let them know. We also made this into a toggle instead of an automatic, because sometimes you do have those external conversations and you don't want to send an email out to them as a reminder of like, hey, remember we talked about this and now you are a collaborator on this request. So the next part of the form is where the requester / client is corresponded with the coordinator. This auto fills out depending on the coordinator that gets selected. And what we wanted to do for this is we wanted to make sure that this message only got sent out once to the requester or client. So I'll talk about this more when we get into action tags, but once you fill this out and once you select complete, it'll send this message out once, and then also you can specify the date that you've sent the message out so that any collaborator or coordinator that comes onto this request later on knows that, oh, there's already been a communication. I need to reach out to the previous coordinator to know what all has been talked about in terms of the email thread. So the second to last bit of the coordinate form is the request task list, and this pulls directly from the request itself. So each of these is the level 2 for community engagement, and then each of these is the level 3 option for community engagement. So this will automatically be checked, and that's something that we didn't have in the ticketing system 2.0 that we wanted to implement in the request portal, to make sure that you don't have to keep track of, as a coordinator, you wouldn't have to keep track of what's been requested. However, you do have the option of adding to these fields once you, like during the lifetime of this request, in case anything has been added or other things have come up that you can provide as a service. And so then when these are checked, any new instance that comes up will also, you'll also be able to see that, and it won't just be reflected of what was in the request initially. The other fun feature about this is once you select any of these, based on the particular hub's requirements, we actually have it so that you can select one and it pops up the coordinators that can help with this particular request. And then from there you can kind of see what the tasks are and then assign them accordingly to whoever you need to be the primary coordinator for this, or if it's a mixed bag of multiple coordinators need to be on this to help support the researcher / client, then you can add those on as collaborators. So the consultation form is what we use to document all of the work that's been done in terms of supporting the request. So for example, setting meetings or any asynchronous work that gets done, and then follow-ups in terms of deliverables. So it starts off again with that request summary, just so that you know you're in the right space. And again, this is going to be very familiar if you're seeing the alerts and notifications. So we just want to, full redundancy, just so that we aren't missing any information. This coordinator details, since it's possible that multiple people will be working on it, we have this space separated so that when you click the radio button, it's only the work that's done by that particular person, and then you can add different instances depending on who else is collaborating with this. You can set the date, and then as well as the time that was dedicated to this process. This also has a space where you can select the services. This doesn't auto-populate because we want to make sure that whoever is doing the consultation can keep track of what they've helped with. And then that's on the coordinator themselves to fill out the information. And then lastly, just so that we know that not everything can be documented via radio buttons, and the date text field, we have a notes section so that they can add any notes that they have in terms of the consultation that they completed. Okay, so I guess before I jump all the way into action tags, the last form pretty much stayed the same in terms of the closeout. The closeout survey itself has changed a little bit just to standardize the process of like, are you satisfied with how your request was resolved? But the closeout is something that is manually done with these pre-existing hubs, and they're automatically closed out for the other ones that send out external links or external emails. So the advanced logic concepts, I know that action tags, if and default, may be your basic logic concepts, but I feel like combining them into this took a little bit of like figuring out the branching logic and how that would work. So if we start off with what's in the request form and we select these within the community engagement hub, we want to make sure that they're selected within that coordinate space to make sure that we are keeping track of all the requests that have been put in. And so I kind of talked through the logic before in the previous slide that talked about the service request and coordinate, but this basically walks through, if the current instance is the first instance, then we take the checklist from the request form and we set it as the value for this, and they match up exactly the same options. And then if the current instance is not one, then the request is whatever the previous instance was checked. So that way we know that if we're making any changes in this space in the coordinate form, it gets reflected on future instances when either the coordinator gets reassigned or the collaborators get added. That was the goal. And this was not just played out in the tasks for coordinate. This also, we can go back. This also is their base logic for the default here and here, where it keeps that same data that gets entered in within any given instance to the new instance. So that way we know that a message had been sent already to the requester and client, and we don't send them another one. Okay, so for alerts and notifications, we have request and coordinate. I know that Mark had already talked about the request for assistance in terms of the external links and hubs. For the pre-existing hubs, so REDCap, clinical research, community engagement, and biostats and informatics, they get an initial heads up that someone has requested for that service. And we're able to provide all the information as well in the email. And this auto populates, as opposed to just having the field names and the event names. This auto populates to whatever the specific request is. This is just the template that's listed in alerts and notifications. The same with this here. It'll have an actually click here link to the REDCap coordinate form to triage the request. We also had these built in as we were going through, just for additional redundancy, to make sure that all of these alerts and notifications were going to the right place. Yeah. So for our coordinate form, this had a couple different alerts and notifications. We had one when it was initially assigned coordination. We also have an additional one when we're reassigning a case to a new coordinator, and then when we are adding any new collaborators. And so those have a very similar structure, but just the text up top here has changed, but the logic itself is a little bit different for each one. So I think that's why I wanted to bring it to your attention, to make sure that, you know, even though the message itself might be similar, sometimes it employs a bunch of different branching logics, which means it has a bunch of different alerts and notifications, even though the message is the same. So for example, our team, our REDCap team is only 3 members. However, since we have to do one coordination alert, reassign coordinator alert, and a new collaborator alert, so that's 3 times our 3 members, so that's 9 alerts total. So you can see if the team gets larger and larger, that will then impact how many alerts and notifications have to be created, or when you're adding on a new member of your team, that's an additional amount of alerts and notifications that need to go out, even though the message is very similar. So we have next steps. This the request portal has been live for about a week and a half. So we're still going through troubleshooting and responding to feedback as we go. So any feedback that you have for this on the client side would be greatly appreciated. Just let us know at REDCap at fsu.edu. And we're also responding to feedback in regards to the hub leads in terms of how their requests are being handled and supported, and hopefully getting all of the information to them at the same time. The other next steps that we wanted to employ in a future iteration of the request portal is that in here in the coordinate space, when you check off one of these, it has another pop-up that says, oh, here are the coordinators that are capable of handling this request. We're hoping to implement something that will allow for an auto select of the coordinator that can then handle these requests. But that's a future iteration. Right now it's very manual and based on the triage leads of the hubs. And I don't have a picture of it on my slides, but the last next step that we also want to make sure that we are working on is a feedback loop. So for example, when you get an email with the link that lists all of the external links from the request that you put in, sometimes that doesn't necessarily answer your question. And we want to make sure that you can, you're able to reach out if you need additional support on this. And that's what this feedback loop is talking about. So just to make sure that you can communicate that, like, oh, these links weren't able to answer my question. I would like more support on that end. And those are our 3 next steps. I think the troubleshooting and responding to feedback, although we have it built into the project design and survey development, that's often something that never ends in terms of the project development, even when it is in production, which is why thankfully there's like a draft mode in which you can make changes to your project in production. There's also a draft preview mode that's new with 15.0 that allows you to actually see what your changes are on the survey, which you weren't able to do before. You would have to create a copy of the project and then implement those changes while the copy was in development. But now you can do that in your project without actually having to leave the production mode. And I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you for being here for our presentation. I will stop sharing and take questions.
So we have one question from a little bit earlier on. It says, I've already migrated some projects to ITS REDCap, but have not started using them yet. My research assistants have not been added to the new projects. However, while working on the old projects at REDCap, they are receiving an error message while trying to load the REDCap page. The message says that the connection is not private. Do you know why this is the case?
Does
I
not sound familiar. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say something similar where I haven't heard of that issue, but I think if you can send as much information as possible to the REDCap at support.fsu, so that you can include screenshots, that would be appreciated, and also just kind of timestamps maybe, so that we can troubleshoot. Did
I
you have
relayed
anything
that.
else to add, Mark?
I agree, other than, or create a ticket, but you can't do the attachments of that.
Right.
But maybe if they did a ticket, so again, we want, it's a support ticket, so I think we'd like to monitor that. And then when we reach out, we could get the screenshots and things. But either way, just reach out to us in one way or the other so that we can help you. Our goal is to help everybody get their stuff up and running in the ITS REDCap. And for the most part, we haven't run across too many things that we haven't been able to solve. So look forward to providing additional support wherever you need it.
Don't give them a challenge, Mark.
I know, right? Uh, Alex, there was another.
Those are all the questions I currently see.
Okay. All right. Well, then I'll move forward. Just as a few reminders, and again, these reminder links will go out. If not in this in the chat, it'll certainly go out through email that Semi will push out about any follow-up post meeting today, as well as the upcoming meeting and links. So if you have user requests, this is the URL, QR code if you want to scan it. Technical support goes to our new portal ticketing system. And again, the QR code if you want to scan it. And for any kind of migration information, there's still people out there. We've only got 91 projects out of 500 or so over in the Med REDCap. So if you'd fill that out, I'm sure there has been people filling them out. We're trying to collect them up in the least to group them together to make it more easy to help people do their migration. A few more. You will have to put in a new API request for the same project that was over Med, now over in the ITS, or if you need an API request for a project you built in Med REDCap, this is the link to do that, QR code to do that. More importantly, for those that feel a little bit intimidated by the November 17th deadline to get your projects moved over, or the extension request, this is the link to do that. Don't wait till the last minute if you would, because it just bottlenecks everything else. And then there's a QR code for that. We don't have a QR code for this next one, but I do have a link to the document that Marceline put together, or I'm sorry, Cindy put together of the common questions that we've been getting that'll hopefully help you get your questions answered. But if not, be sure to send an email to redcap@fsu.edu, and we'll certainly reach out ASAP to address your questions. And finally, I want to thank everybody for attending today. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, September 24th. Our presenters the next meeting will be Marcelina, Semi, and myself. The topic is going to be about data visualization, where we talk about data reporting, data exporting, and external Power BI dashboard visuals. And for that, again, thank you, and look forward to seeing you guys next month. And until